What's up, everybody? I was really trying hard to get a video finished and out today, but I've worked too hard on it to release it this late in the day. But I've got a lot of bonus reading here that ties in perfectly with that video. None of this is actually covered in it. So I thought I'd put together a little teaser for you guys for now. If you guys haven't heard of M. David Litwa, I highly recommend looking into him. He's done quite a few Gnostic informant interviews as well as Myth Vision podcasts. Look into all these people. But I'm just going to read you an abstract here, and I got to figure out how to access these academic forums because I bet there's a lot of good stuff in there. This chapter argues that the notion of the evil Judean creator had existed for centuries in native Egyptian revisionary mythology. That's a Gnostic idea that he is referring to. The notion was thus already prepared for its early Christian application to the Judeo-Catholic creator. Since the 2nd century BCE, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans had identified the evil god Seth, Typhon, often depicted as a donkey-like creature, with the Jewish god Yahweh. The Seth Yahweh tradition, with all its negative valence, was then applied to the creator worship by Christians as well. If you're new to my channel, then this will all make sense when you see my video tomorrow or go back and watch some of my old videos. Evidence for this view comes from the early Christian depiction of the creator and his sons in donkey Typhonian form. Okay, big teaser. This is the thumbnail for tomorrow's video. And if you're new here, don't scream and run away. You should definitely hear me out before you knock it. This is just some extra credit info. Typhon in Greek mythology is the youngest son of Gaia, Earth, and Tartarus, the underworld. He's described as a grisly monster with 100 dragon's heads who was conquered and cast into the underworld by Zeus. In other accounts, he was confined in the land of Arimi in Cilicia, or under Mount Etna, or in other volcanic regions where he was the cause of eruptions. Typhon was thus the personification of volcanic forces. Among his children, by his wife Echidna, were Cerberus, the three-headed hound of hell, the multi-headed Hydra, and the Chimera. He was also the father of dangerous winds. This is where we get the name typhoons. And by later writers, he was identified with the Egyptian god Seth, or Seth, who is the donkey-headed god, and that's what's tying all of this together here. Ophite, from the Greek ophis, or serpent, is a member of any of several Gnostic sects that flourished in the Roman Empire during the 2nd century AD and for several centuries after. By the way, just like everything else I've been talking about lately, the Gnostics disappear and then reappear all of a sudden in the 1300s as the Cathars. I find that time gap in literally everything I look into. A variety of Gnostic sects such as the Nacenes or the Cainites, not the Canaanites, the Cainites, are included under the designation Ophites. These sects' beliefs differed in various ways, but central to them all was a dualistic theology that opposed a purely spiritual supreme being who was both the origin of the cosmic process and the highest good to a chaotic and evil material world. To the Ophites, man's dilemma results from his being a mixture of these conflicting spiritual and material elements. Only gnosis, the esoteric knowledge of good and evil, can redeem man from the bonds of matter and make him aware of the unknown God who is the true source of all being. Now, going back to Eustace Mullins that I was recently reading from, and I know this comes from the Babylonian Holy Book, but he writes, their leader, Satan, the adversary of God, also known as Satana, was the serpent who entered into and seduced Eve, producing the first red rummer Cain. Now, this is a whole video in itself easily, but there are many traditions out there saying that the serpent had a child with Eve. And if that's the case, then the first human ever born was of the serpent seed. Because, well, Adam and Eve were both made by God. Neither one of them were born. And this is the official version that we're reading from here, but Cain, the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, and Fortunately, he became a farmer and is infamous for committing the first red rum. So I find it really weird that the vegetarian is the red rummer here. I'm not going to get into it, but doesn't that seem weird? And Yahweh really likes it when you burn animals to him. But Cain was the firstborn, and apparently that was due to the union of the serpent and Eve. So then when you look at that whole situation and context, well, Eve had relations and learned about the birds and the bees with the serpent, and then went to Adam and said, hey, look what we can do. And so Abel would have actually been the first son of Adam. And Abel burned animals unto God, so God likes his animals burnt. And I'll do all the explaining in tomorrow's video. And then, of course, Cain slew Abel. So then all that was left was the serpent seed, Cain, who was marked and then sent off into the land. After Abel's death, then Adam and Eve had another son named Seth, and he is considered to be of the righteous line of descendants through whom the godly heritage continued. Now, he's considered to be the righteous line, but is he? Because all I can say right now is, and this isn't something that I'm just holding back on, I'm trying to figure things out here, but the wires have been crossed throughout history, is about all I can say for now. So now let's jump to Cainite, not a Canaanite, a Cainite. Member of a Gnostic sect mentioned by Irenaeus and other early Christian writers as flourishing in the 2nd century AD, probably in the eastern area of the Roman Empire. The Christian theologian Origen declared that the Cainites had entirely abandoned Jesus. Now you got to understand, sometimes when they're saying the Christian, they are saying the representatives of the Church of Rome, the universal church. Like Epiphanius, who is just famous for condemning and outright slandering all of the Gnostics. So I'm going to reread that as the Church of Rome said that the Cainites had entirely abandoned Jesus. Their reinterpretation of Old Testament texts reflects the view that Yahweh was not merely an inferior demiurge, as many Gnostics believed, but that he was positively evil because his creation of this world was perversely designed to prevent the reunion of the divine element in man with the unknown perfect God. The Cainites also reverse biblical values by revering such rejected figures as Cain, whence their name came, Esau, and the Sodomites, all of whom were considered to be bearers of an esoteric saving knowledge or gnosis. These Cainites also honored Eve and Judas Iscariot and had gospels bearing their names. Now, I kind of figure most of you that are watching this have already watched my other videos on this subject, and multiple times I've pointed out how in the Old Testament, Esau is not the bad guy, Jacob is. Jacob stole his inheritance while he was starving, and they write it off as, oh, he just gave it up for a bowl of porridge. The guy had been out hunting for weeks probably and was starving. And even in the Babylonian holy book tradition, they say, yeah, he tricked him. Jacob saw an opportunity to take everything that Esau had. And then Esau was hairy, so in order for Jacob to trick his father, he put a rug on and pretended to be Esau and went in to see Isaac. It was Isaac, right? Their father. But he tricked their father into giving him his blessing that was supposed to go to Esau. So Jacob stole everything Esau had. And it's really had me questioning for a long time, how much of this stuff is backwards? Did Cain get a bad rap? I can't argue a case for that yet, but all I'm saying here is have an open mind and really look closely at everything that's going on here. Because the Church of Rome, in coalition with the Babylonian holy bookers, took over Christianity a long time ago with the Catholic Church, the universal church. They didn't care what you believed, they just wanted a one world religion. But people like Marcion and apparently the first true Christians, who were the first ones to actually write a Christian Bible, believed that Yahweh of the Old Testament was an evil God. So that's all I'm saying for now. I got a 25-minute video ready for you guys coming out tomorrow. Static out. Oh yeah, with full internet and pictures and all that stuff. Later.